What if I told you there's a form of pollution you can't see, can't smell, and almost can't avoid? We are all consuming plastic every single day. Not just from bottles, but from the air you breathe, the food you eat, and the water you drink. These tiny particles are called microplastics, and they're already inside your body.
Synthetic polymers have migrated into the deepest recesses of our physiology. These fragments are now lodging themselves within our vital organs at a cellular level. This infiltration begins before we take our first breath. Pediatric researchers have detected microscopic plastic fragments in placentas, in umbilical cord blood, and even in meconium, a newborn infant's first stool. We are arriving into the world pre-polluted. The plastic particles quietly accumulating within us are microscopic, existing at a scale entirely invisible to the human naked eye. For decades, we operated under the assumption that throwing away a disposable item meant it was gone. The reality is that our convenience packaging, synthetic clothing, and single-use plastics have fractured and scattered, relocating inside of us. To understand how we became saturated, we look back to 1907, when chemist Leo Baekeland invented the first fully synthetic plastic. Manufacturers quickly realized this new material was cheap, lightweight, and endlessly versatile. By the post-war era, society was mass-producing nylon, polyester, and single-use packaging. Disposability became the ultimate consumer convenience. But that convenience relied on a severe biological paradox. Plastic is highly durable, meaning it practically never degrades back into natural organic matter. Instead, environmental exposure forces larger plastics to break down into finer and finer synthetic particles. This data visualization shows exactly what that looks like at scale. Today, we produce roughly 450 million metric tons of plastic annually. As that massive volume slowly degrades, researchers estimate that the average adult inadvertently ingests about 5 grams of plastic every single week. That is the equivalent of eating a credit card. We have built the foundation of modern human society on a material that is physically permanent, yet biologically incompatible with our own physiology. This dimensional scale shows the physics of that incompatibility. When scientists talk about microplastics, they mean fragments up to 5 millimeters long. But the far more concerning categories are nanoplastics, particles measuring less than 1 micrometer. That's thousands of times smaller than a grain of sand. Generated by heat and friction, everyday mechanical wear causes larger plastic polymers to constantly shed invisible flecks into the environment. That shedding is how they enter our diet. Reheating leftovers in a plastic takeout container, or pouring boiling water over a paper tea bag sealed with plastic glue, forces microscopic synthetic polymers to leach directly into our meals. They also enter through our respiratory system. The simple friction of moving against synthetic polyester bed sheets releases fibers into your bedroom air. Outside, the friction of car tires rolling against asphalt launches a constant stream of rubber polymers into the atmosphere. Mundane routines, making tea, sleeping, commuting to work, are inadvertently shredding the synthetic objects around us into a pervasive, inhalable dust. As this fluid model illustrates, nanoplastics pose a unique danger purely because of their size. Once ingested or inhaled, they are small enough to slip straight through the biological barriers of the gut and the lungs, entering the bloodstream and traveling to major internal organs. A landmark 2024 medical study examined patients undergoing surgery for arterial plaque. More than 2 years later, researchers found that the patients who had microscopic plastic embedded in their plaque were almost 5 times more likely to suffer a heart attack, a stroke, or die. There are severe neurological implications too. Recent animal studies show that after drinking plastic-laced water, mice begin to accumulate these polymers in their brains. Shortly after, they lose their natural defensive instincts,
exhibiting erratic behavior in open spaces. When scientists dissected the brains of those mice, they found the plastic exposure had depleted GFAP, a critical protein linked to overall brain health. This precise protein depletion mirrors the chemical pattern seen in patients with dementia and depression. In healthy children undergoing routine surgery for sleep apnea, pediatric surgeons recently made an unsettling discovery. Looking through a microscope, they found distinct, identifiable specks of Teflon lodged deep within the patient's tonsil tissue. Evidence suggests these fragments are biologically active, embedding in our tissues to disrupt gene expression, trigger inflammation, and drive disease progression across multiple vital organs. Proving exact causality in humans is incredibly difficult, owing to a sobering scientific reality. To run a flawless randomized controlled trial, you need an unexposed control group. But because plastic has reached every corner of the Earth, a human being entirely free of microplastics no longer exists. Even lab testing is hampered by the material's sheer ubiquity. Scientists struggle to separate the nanoplastics they are trying to study from the ambient plastic shedding off their own petri dishes, pipettes, and lab equipment. Fixing the root of this crisis requires massive, sweeping systemic intervention. We would need strict global caps on synthetic production, the complete phase-out of the thousands of toxic chemicals used in manufacturing, and aggressive international treaties. But while the scientific community races to map the precise toxicity of every polymer, the overwhelming scale of our exposure means we cannot afford to wait for absolute certainty before taking action. You don't have to wait for a global treaty to start clearing your own biological pathways. You have the agency to block the major routes of infiltration right now. It starts in the kitchen. Heat accelerates leaching, so you must stop cooking or reheating food in plastic. Swap to glass or stainless steel containers. Ditch plastic chopping boards that splinter under knives, and replace easily scratched non-stick Teflon pans with cast iron. Next, lower your indoor airborne exposure. Opt for natural fibers like cotton or wool for your clothing and bedsheets, and check your cosmetics and face washes. Many contain hidden liquid polymers under names like polyurethane or acrylates. Finally, focus on your baseline health. Getting adequate sleep, eating a balanced diet, and reducing stress ensures that your body's natural immune and filtration systems are operating at peak efficiency to handle the pollutants that do make it inside. Achieving absolute zero exposure in the modern world is physically impossible, but by making targeted, deliberate lifestyle choices, you can ensure that carrying a few fragments of plastic doesn't dictate your long-term health.